You are in the Rant Wormhole, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Kenneth Crayley, who says, rant about the pros and cons of old forums versus modern social media as forms of online communication. That's an interesting one. So I was a big-time forumite for most of my youth. And I gotta say, I hate forums. I think forums are terrible. They're a bad way to communicate. They ruined my whole life. And I want no involvement. Like, the reason I started an anime blog was to... Well, it wasn't why I started it, but the reason I ended up becoming a blogger full-time was to escape from forums, basically. And the reason is that on most forums, people don't really talk to each other. They talk past each other unless they disagree, in which case they argue. And this also depends on the size of the forum, the integratedness of its community, but it's kind of like a necessary thing to happen well, let me take a step back. So, there's different types of forums, right? You've got your huge open forums, like, in terms of anime, because that's obviously the kind of forums I was on at the time, and I'm going to speak about, like, not so much my really early time on forums, but, like, the mid-era when that was all I was doing, was posting on forums. There was Anime Suki. That was, like, the biggest one that I knew of. And on Anime Suki, you would go into a thread, and it might be something like, who's your favorite anime character? And every single post is just somebody saying who their favorite anime character is and, like, writing about them, but clearly not reading or responding to anyone else's posts. Like, everybody's just using this as an excuse to tell their contribution, but they're not reading anyone else's because they don't care. Like, why would you? Why do I care about what random guy in forum? And most of them are terrible writers, So, like, it's just not really conversation. And even if somebody does respond, it's either to, like, say, oh, I don't like that character, or I do. Like, not to say that you can't get interesting discussion, but, like, on a forum of that size, it's not likely, especially since there's no sense of community there. It's just a bunch of random people who don't really know each other talking about whatever. I used to go on there mostly just to use the recommendation board, and it was funny because even in that sense, like, people would start up threads and clearly not look through the other ones or even read what other people were saying. So, yeah, like, I really hated that kind of big open forum where just, like, everyone's just talking past each other and just saying their own thing. Then you've got the smaller, but still, like, we'll say mid-size, like the Mega Tokyo forums, where I, like, did a lot of my come-up on. On the Mega Tokyo forums, there's a much greater sense of community because there are recognizable people who are always around. There might be, let's say, 35 people who are in the anime board on that forum regularly, and so even if other people come and go, there's always going to be people you can count on, and, like, once you start to get a sense of these people, then you can really have conversations with them because you kind of know where they're coming from, you know enough about them that you understand their communication styles and writing styles. But there's always going to be also a clash of personality, and for me, having been a really confrontational, bratty young guy, like, I was always getting into fights or getting into trouble on forums, always having some kind of drama. So, and these places are hotbeds for drama. And that gets me to the smaller forums. Smaller forums are just drama. It's just a bunch of people starting drama with each other. Because, frankly, if you're spending all your time on forums, you must not have anything going on in your life. So, this is where you gotta go to try to find some human connection. And in your desperation, you might surround yourself with people who you really have no business, like, being in a community with these people. And so it's just constant fucking argumentativeness and drama. And usually what happens is that most of the actual friendship or, like, the deeper communication people have on these forums goes to the DMs. And I didn't even really understand that when I was younger, that, like, most people, they go onto the internet, they're trying to find connection. They meet a couple of people in, like, you use a forum as a starting point, right? Like, let's go to an anime forum. Anime fans will be there. Oh, most of these people I don't feel the same way as, but these two guys like all the same shows as me, or we like having conversations. I can just go talk to those people now. Like, I don't have to stay in the forum, in the context of posting these threads. I can talk to them in PMs. I can talk to them. I can get their instant messenger handle. I didn't have instant messenger till a little later personally. So like, and I didn't really use private messages. I was just like in the forums, and I think the main reason to get into a forum is to escape the forum. To take your friends and run. And like, I feel similarly about Discords now, where like people get these big group Discords, and it's like eventually you have to make a decision about like, do we want to continually let more people into this and let the culture constantly shift and let like, people who we don't necessarily want to talk to come in, or are we going to shut ourselves off and be a clique, And there was a point in my Discord, my patron Discord, and I've told this story before, where at some point I said like, hey, I understand, like, because people were complaining about, like, other members who they didn't like, or wanting there to be more, like, ground rules and stuff, and I was like, look, the point of this forum, or this Discord, is that it's for my patrons, so I can't put anyone above anyone else, like, I can't let this be an insular community, because ideally my Patreon will always have more people in it, and always be inviting new members, so it has to be open to everybody. If you want to have more of a sense of community, a closed circle, you just gotta go make another Discord with whoever you want to out of this group, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's exactly the same as what people did with forums back then. And I even had experiences where, like, we would go from one forum to splitting off to another forum, where people would go make a suspected spam caller. Then why do you even fucking put it through? Why not just block it entirely? Anyway, so, whereas in the social media age, things are different and insane, and I think that social media works for me because I'm a content creator. It works for me because I've got so many eyes on me, and it's more of an individual thing where it's about starting a conversation. So as a blogger, what was appealing to me about it was that rather than going into, say, like, let's say you're on Reddit and somebody makes, like, Shield Hero Episode 7 discussion, right? And then everybody makes their posts about their impressions of the thing. And for what it's worth, I think Reddit does a better job of discussion than forums used to. I think it's a better place for discussion. I don't really know why. It's just something about the culture of it. They care more about that. But, like, as a blogger, instead of throwing in my 2 cents into the sea of 2 cents, we have a discussion about my take. I write what I feel about the show, and then specifically the comments are, us discussing my thoughts on the show. So instead of me just dumping that and then you dumping your thoughts and the next guy dumping their thoughts and nobody actually has to respond to each other, the only way it even makes sense to respond to my post is to respond to what I said. Although there are tons of people, especially on YouTube, who just use a video as a platform to leave their thoughts. Like, I'll make a review of a show and then somebody just like copy pastes their own review from somewhere else into the comments, and I'm like, well, that's fucking irrelevant to this video. Like, just go make your own video. But like, social media kind of is an extension on that, where it's people making their own posts and then other people responding to those posts. So it's always relevant. It's always like on topic, and whether or not people choose to engage with the post just comes down to like, did you say something interesting? Like, it's not encouraging everybody to state their opinion on a thing. It's encouraging you to, if you have an opinion, to state it, and then other people to react. And that is a system that I think is just a lot better. Social media has obviously caused no shortage of problems. Everybody's talked about that, so I don't need to get into it. I'm just telling you why, surprisingly, I think it's better.